In the summer of 1999, it was clear to everyone in the Kremlin that Putin was on the doorstep of the presidency. What wasn't clear was how he was going to gain the public support necessary to actually be elected president. Putin and his inner circle determined that the quickest way to ensure that the people embraced someone like Putin as their leader was to cast him as their protector. But protector from what? There needed to be a clear and present danger, a wolf at the door. Conveniently, the Chechen minority in the Caucasus region in the south of the Federation, a group who historically had been at odds, often in armed conflict with Russia, were available to be cast as the wolf. In August 1999, warlords Shamil Basayev and Ibn al-Khattab led their Islamist militia from their home Republic of Chechnya on an invasion of the Republic of Dagestan. We need to pause here to take in an important point. Even after the Soviet Union's breakup into 15 independent states, the Russian Federation was still a union of 92 subject areas. Think of them as akin to our 50 states and various territories here in the United States. This is crucial to understanding that there are still a lot of divisions within Russia that run deep, leaving it constantly vulnerable to separatist movements and armed civil conflict. But back to Dagestan. The aim of these rebels was to liberate the republic from Russian control, targeting it because it's the southernmost territory in the region. Putin became the face of the Federation's response, which acted swiftly and effectively to defeat the invaders. But during the final days of the summer, a series of bombings, spread over 3 weeks, targeted civilians across Russia, killing hundreds of innocent people and sending a wave of fear throughout the country. The first blast hit an underground mall steps from the Kremlin, killing 1. 5 days later, a car bomb exploded in front of a building housing Russian border guards in Dagestan, killing 64. The third attack was on September 9th in Moscow, when a massive bomb went off in the ground floor of an apartment building, killing 100 sleeping residents. 4 days later, another apartment bomb was detonated in Moscow, resulting in 118 deaths. And the fifth attack, 3 days later on September 16th in the southern city of Volgodonsk, featured a truck bomb exploding outside an apartment building, killing 18 people. 3 additional bombs were allegedly found and defused throughout Moscow. When the carnage was over, 301 people were killed and more than 1,000 were injured. As soon as people began to actually search for the perpetrators of the bombings, it became clear that something wasn't right. On the morning of September 22nd, just 6 days after the final apartment bombing, residents caught 3 Russian FSB agents red-handed, planting a bomb in the basement of an apartment building in the Ryazan region. They were carrying sacks of the explosive RDX, widely used by the Russian military, and determined to be the same explosive that caused each of the earlier bombings. In fact, as reported by the Russian historian David Satter, all 4 apartment bombings were revealed to have the same signature, meaning the nature of the destruction, the way the building's concrete panels collapsed, and the volume of the blast were nearly identical. Even more damning is the fact that more than 400 pounds of RDX was used in each blast. RDX is only produced in one place in Russia, in a single factory located hundreds of miles away from Chechnya, deep in the Perm Oblast region. This factory is guarded by the FSB. There are many other signs that suggest the FSB carried out these attacks, like the fact that 5 of the 9 suspects the Russian government said they were hunting were killed, 2 others fled the country, and the remaining 2 were caught and tried for the attacks. But an opposition member of the Russian parliament named Mikhail Trepashkin believed they were being framed and planned to present evidence supporting this at their trial. Trepashkin was himself a former member of the FSB and a lawyer, so he knew what he was talking about, but he never got the chance to make his case because he was arrested on a bogus illegal weapons charge, tried in a closed military trial, convicted, and sentenced to 5 years in prison. The 2 bombing suspects were then convicted, and Trepashkin wasn't the only man silenced for seeking the truth. 2 other opposition members of parliament on a committee investigating the bombings were assassinated within 3 months of each other. Then, when the prominent investigative journalist Artem Borovik planned an investigation of his own of FSB involvement in the bombings, he was killed when his plane mysteriously crashed on takeoff from Moscow's Sheremetyevo airport. Then there's the French daily newspaper Le Figaro, who conducted an interview with Russian nationalist General Alexander Lebed, who, when asked if the Kremlin was behind the apartment bombings, said, quote,
"I'm all but convinced of it. Any Chechen field commander set on revenge would have started blowing up generals. Or he'd have started striking Internal Affairs Ministry and Federal Security Service buildings, military stockpiles, or nuclear power plants. He wouldn't have targeted ordinary, innocent people."
General Lebed continued to make accusations that the bombings were a high-level government-orchestrated inside job, until he died in a helicopter crash in 2002. And finally, there's the former FSB operative Alexander Litvinenko, who fled to London with his family and began to speak out against the Putin regime's crimes as a journalist and author. He picked up on troubling elements of the FSB's involvement in the apartment bombings. He was famously killed in 2006, becoming the first known victim of polonium-210-induced acute radiation poisoning. The effects of the bombings were immediate. I'll use Professor Dawish's own words from her book Putin's Kleptocracy here.
Prime Minister Putin was on television nightly. The population was baying for vengeance, and Putin became their vehicle. Regional elites started to go over to the Putin camp. By the end of September, after Yeltsin gave him complete control over the war effort, Putin launched a ground offensive into Chechnya. Within the month, almost half of the total population of Chechnya would become refugees. The destruction inflicted on the capital city of Grozny, which was, after all, a city within Russia, was greater than any seen in Europe since World War II. While doubts and suspicions about the complicity of the security services continue to this day, the bombings were regarded at the time as absolutely critical in promoting Putin's candidacy. Putin's approval ratings rose dramatically through the fall, from 2% in August to 45% by November. Sergei Kovalyov summed up the real political impact of the apartment bombings in early 2000. Those explosions were a crucial moment in the unfolding of our current history. After the first shock passed, it turned out that we were living in an entirely different country, in which almost no one dared talk about a peaceful political resolution of the crisis with Chechnya.
The significance of the bombings cannot be overstated. These events revealed the risks that Putin and his team were taking to seize power, and foreshadowed the ruthless tactics to which Putin's Kremlin would resort to keep it. Thank you for watching part 4 in our series profiling Vladimir Putin's Russia. And if you feel like you learned something from these videos, you'd really like the book that helped inspire me to create them. We've arranged for you to get a free download of the audiobook version of Putin's Kleptocracy, from which I was quoting earlier in this video, or any audiobook of your choice. All you have to do is sign up for a free 1-month trial at audible.com. And if you sign up, Audible will throw a little bit back our way. That way, you get to feel good about contributing to us, and all it costs you is, well, less than nothing, because you get a free audiobook. Click on the screen to watch part 5, or go back and start with part 1. Or watch our mini documentary profiling the 10 energy sources of the future. Or if you're new to TDC, you can visit our channel where you can subscribe and watch our latest video.